Hello. I'm just going to test the audio for the first few seconds before we get into this. I'm just waiting for the feedback to come back through YouTube to me. Yeah, it seems okay now. So yeah, getting into this debate. Well, it's a bit one-sided because I'm the only person on the broadcast at the minute. If anybody ever wants to come on to the live chat, please let me know, because I do welcome guests on here to debate things, discuss things, or basically talk about whatever they like. But this is the Brexit viewpoint from a Brit living in Spain with a Filipina wife, and I want to expand that out. I've got two kids, which are basically mixed race. So yeah, that's from our viewpoint. Our normal joins us. Hello. Yeah, it sounds much better. I apologize. It's my wife's phone. For some reason, it doesn't have to use some bandwidth. I don't know what it's busy doing, but it certainly loves the internet. But the article 50 trigger that went on yesterday, because obviously it's now being gone through the House of Commons, House of Lords, and it looks like it's going to go ahead. And one of the main concerns is this freedom of movement thing that can affect so many people. The big concern now is if Europe turns around and treats the UK the way the UK has decided to treat everybody else. But as a Brit, I've been experiencing it for some time anyway. When the EU floodgates opened up, what they decide in their pearls of wisdom is to target British nationals that have foreign partners. They talk about the 18.6 rule, which is basically they have the 18,600 income, and then they increase it depending on how many kids you've got. And I'll be honest with you, I earn a lot more than that, but at the same time, I have no trust in the British system. My faith in the British system died a long time ago, but I also sit amongst a lot of groups and things related to expats in the Philippines, Asia, Middle East, all over the place, and also in groups in Europe. And there's been things like delaying tactics on people's passports. There's been issues which, they cancel people's indefinite right to remain in the UK and all these sort of things after long periods of time in the UK. Who wants that for their family? Who wants that from their family? About the rights to live in the UK long term. See this backfiring at some point if it's not already. It seems on this assumption that the world is and it doesn't have to give anything in return. The reality is, it doesn't function without Europeans. It doesn't function without all over the world. It simply just does not function without external assistance, from your Indian doctors to your Filipino nurses to dentists. There is a huge reliance on resources from the, and the problem is not the British. The British simply do not have enough people with the right skills. Shortages all over the UK, in engineering, and if I went back to the UK today, I could have a job this afternoon. There's that many shortages in people that actually need to know something. If the UK was going to be a big exporter, it's probably in things like media studies. It's simply not creating the right people for the right jobs. It's got too many people doing degrees and stuff that have no job at the end of it. There's not even job creation from it. What you've got is jobs that have no future. You finish qualification, okay, I've got a degree, I've got £16,000 worth of debt, and the degree nobody actually uses, so I've got nothing to do with it. But hey ho, that's the way the UK's gone. Now, the problem I have with that is it relies so much on everybody else but at the same time sitting there saying, well, we don't need Europeans, we don't need foreigners, we don't need this. It does. It does, and it will continue to do so, and it's going to increasingly rely on others to support its infrastructure, support its health service, and a lot of key jobs throughout the country. But also financially. Come on, the nuclear power plants, Chinese money, French power plants. Nobody even contests why this is needed. Why is it not being the British taxpayer funding its own power and then having subsidized power from it? Now, that's a bit of a Brexit bash. This is me bashing the UK for a little bit here. But moving on from that, I find that living in Spain, the first thing is immigration is more humane, more. It's not, I wouldn't say it's easier. I wouldn't say it is less complex. I would say it's less expensive. I would say that people treat you more like a human being rather than a barcoded human. Well, they're dehumanized. They are dehumanized in the UK. It's something like the Matrix, where you're just a number. In Spain, people do take pity on you in immigration. I've seen some of the stuff that goes on here, and even with people that aren't 100% ticking all the boxes, are still being allowed to move to Spain because they know that they will be useful for society. They will contribute to society, and they're not going, well, you've ticked 9 of the 10 boxes, but because you haven't ticked number 10, you can't come here. The only thing I'm worried about now is, as a British expat, is this going to affect people like myself that have got foreign partners? Because right now we're protected under the EU law. As an EU citizen, our spouses and kids are protected under us. So even if our partners aren't fully through the immigration process, they still protect us. The UK, they're deporting people who've been there for bloody 20 odd years. There's been people deported on flights in the media, to Jamaica and stuff. Yeah, our normal, I love that. Yeah, it frustrates me. I love Spain. I get treated better here than I do in the UK. Now, I will say it's bureaucratic. I will say they don't speak English and will help you a little bit, but they're not going to bend over backwards. They haven't got a phone number on the wall like the UK that's got 16 different languages on it on a premium rate number. But what they will say is, go and get yourself an interpreter and come back. Now, an interpreter costs about 20 euros an hour. If you need an interpreter, I can get you one. Andreas is fluent in Spanish and English, along with his wife, and my wife also speaks Spanish and English. So we've got people that can help you paperwork wise and going along for the as an interpreter. But I'm frustrated. I was really disappointed on the freedom movement thing, because I think people get too one-sided with it, assuming that everybody's, yeah, they are normal. I speak Spanish and English. Well, you're already a head start, because I tell you now, you'll find work here, no problem. Yeah, Valencia, you will find work easily, and it's a beautiful place. I've only spent probably about 6 hours there. I'm going back there. I loved it. We weren't there all day because we had to be back to pick the kids up from school, and it's miles away from where we are. But it's beautiful there. I like it. It's got this city life, but at the same time, it's a very beautiful location. Yeah, our normal. But we need to know more about the Autonomo. With a family, we work on the internet. Well, with Autonomo, you can set it up. Be careful though, if they set it up wrong, it can only work in local currency. In other words, it only works locally. But you can set it up so it can receive money internationally, and then you get a number, and it can do the VAT and everything, all the taxes and that for you. Yes, you can do that. There's good tax incentives as a family as well. I know some people complain that the taxes are more in Spain, but in all honesty, I don't think most people realize how much we are taxed in the UK, because we're taxed on everything. A lot of it is stealth tax, it's a lot of hidden taxes. But in Spain, it's yeah, Autonomo, because I'm just in the process of doing that myself. I was Autonomo set up for English teaching. They set it up wrong, but also I got a load of work from the UK, and that's already taxed and everything in the UK because they didn't recognize the Spanish tax system. So I'm busy sorting that out now, and I'm busy rewriting some websites to actually set up myself as full-blown self-employed in Spain. Because as long as you're showing your accounts over a certain level, I think if you're a family of two, you've got an income of about 1,600 to 2,000 euros a month, then they're happy. That's enough to pay your tax, that's enough to pay your social security, and that's what they're worried about. They're not trying to get people to leave the country. As long as you're paying your way, they don't care. You know, there's people, this area I'm in, the La Mata, Torrevieja area, over 50% of the population are not Spanish. On top of that, they're trying to push Valencian, the language, into this area, and they're getting some hostile, what do you call it, protests from the locals and foreign. It's mainly coming from the locals, I admit that, but they're getting supported by the foreigners that have moved there, because people don't speak enough English here. And that's one of the things the Spanish are saying, is there should be more emphasis on English, because they need it for working in Europe, working in the UK or whatever. But the emphasis seems to be on pushing Valencian so that it can keep its regional identity. But most Spaniards in this area don't even speak Valencian. So it's a bit bizarre. Yeah, I don't know. I'd love to meet you. Yeah, we'll have to meet up when you get here. Yeah, I have friends here from the UK that will probably follow us to Spain as well. I am exactly the same. There's several people in La Mata here that have moved here. There's several people in Spain in this same area, because I made the move and showed that you can do it. And they're like, go for it, we'll do it. It's the same as some of these people, they're single. They haven't even bothered registering in the system. There's a lot of Brits here that just do not exist in the Spanish system. Nobody goes looking for them. They're not too fussed to get the system. They hop back to the UK when it suits. And you know, some of these guys have been here at 18 years. And that, as long as they're paying the taxes and paying the rents and everything else, nobody really cares. I know they're trying to say, oh, we're going to clamp down on this, but I don't think they're clamping down excessively hard, because at the end of the day, they're still paying their way. They're not taking anything out of social security. They're not taking anything out of healthcare. If anything, they're contributing to everything. But yeah, one thing I will say, the downsides to Spain is just learning the language. And even that, you've got to look at it a positive way. You're learning a new language. The thing for my kids, I don't see any racial issues with my kids. It's quite funny with my son, in a comical way, because some of the kids at school say he's Chinese, and he's like, I'm not Chinese. But these, you know, they're young kids, and I mean, the school's so multicultural, multi-mixed. Nobody really has an issue there, because there's people from everywhere: Ukraine, Russia, China, India, all over the place. There's hardly any Brits there, oddly enough, but it's very multicultural. Yeah, our normal says, that was so important to me. In America, race is a huge issue right now. UK is going that way, and it saddens me, because I come from a family that's ex-military, in the sense that my father's military and I'm not. But the thing was, there's a whole thing of being brought up where there's no racism in our family. Everything was based on what people are and what they achieve. And to find that a lot of the, like the whole Brexit thing, is all immigration, and then it's the issues relating to things like Syria, but nobody does the crossover. Nobody relates to what happened in Syria and the influx of arms and stuff from the West and the interference from the, it just happened. It's just overnight, nothing, it just appeared, nothing to see here. And then going, why is all these people in Europe? It's all these people creating the problem. I'm just sitting there going, you've got to sit and look at the root causes. If you don't start at the root causes, it's just going to have the media constantly going, oh, look at these people, as if they just suddenly appear from nowhere. I wouldn't say our normal is there's no. I wouldn't say there's no racism. I would say we haven't experienced it in our location. The big cities might be a bit different, but I don't really have enough experience in those. But I do know. I mean, when we went to Barcelona on the way down here, we bumped into some Filipinos in just going to look at the cathedral, and there's a lot of Filipinos in Barcelona, a lot of Filipinos in Madrid. I think it's a case, I mean, especially here on the coast, people just let people get on with their lives. Nobody's really poking their nose in. They're not, they're interested, but at the same time, they're not really vindictive. I think that's the thing. There's a lot of hate built up in the UK. I mean, I see it in cities mainly. It seems worse in cities. I think it's because people are so close together. But yeah, I don't experience it here in Spain. I see some Brits complain about, oh, the Guardia this or that. If you're British, I think a lot of it is how people treat other people. I really do. I remember the guy who's supposed to be dealing with my residencia. He turned around and said, when I said to him, well, all my paperwork's correct. He said, well, you can go and speak to the guy with the big gun, blah, blah. I'm like, what, are you talking to me as if I'm a child or 80-year-old? And you're just trying to take advantage either way. I'll just go and speak to them myself. And you go in there with the right attitude and apologize that you don't speak enough Spanish, etc. They will help you. It's as simple as that. It's like it's human nature. If people approach you with the right mentality, etc., you'll get a positive result 9 times out of 10. But I don't understand. But I do see some of the way some expats is a bit like in the Philippines. You see the way some of the expats act, and you can understand why they have a hard time because they're hard work. Our normal says we have a friend there, and he says it's amazing. I'm Spanish. My husband is Italian, but you can't tell. Laugh out loud. What would you know the visa fees associated with the autonomo visa for your wife and your kids? Autonomo self-employment. The self-employment is basically what it costs for you pay Social Security every month and you pay your taxes. I think the taxes are 20%, and then obviously you got your VAT as well. So it all depends what you're doing. But if your husband's Italian, you want to speak to Andres. Andres is here. He's my lawyer friend. He's also Italian, so they'll probably get on really well. Because he'll be able to update, because his wife's from Colombia. So they moved here, I think it was probably about a year ago now, because they moved out, another couple that moved out of the UK. This is the funny thing. You hear about the immigration to the UK, but most of the people I'm hearing, they're coming to Spain, are leaving the UK. They are, they're foreigners, but they're leaving the UK because of the way it is. That's the reality. And I know I'll get bashed by some people going, what right have you to say that? I said, they're leaving. They wanted to live in the UK. They wanted to settle there, but sometimes you just don't feel welcome there. And then when you come to Spain, you come out of the house, the sun's beaming on you, people are friendly. Where we are, everybody knows each other. You go to the greengrocers. Yeah, we have a real greengrocers. It's not a big supermarket. Although we have a supermarket, we've got some big supermarkets, we still have a greengrocer. We've got bakers, several butchers, all these little artisan businesses, which have been wiped out by the supermarkets in the UK. They're protected. They're definitely protected in La Mata. I don't know what the rest of Spain's like, but there is associations and stuff that protect small businesses, and I love that. And I've had people complain to me before, saying, "Well, if they can't compete with the big businesses," it's like, what are you talking about? I remember the UK when the bread was like 19 pence as the supermarkets decided to destroy the baking industry and were left to do it. Now look at it. All you've got is Greg's or buying Warburtons or something. All the good little bakers, they all vanished. Arnold says, I'm in Thailand right now. Chiang Mai. There are so many people here from the UK. It's not that they don't love the UK. They do. I agree. I think the problem there is the media playing the fact that expats hate their home country or whatever. But let's be honest, they don't want to go back. It's like anything. If you've got something better in life, you do that. It's like moving home. When you move from your home and become an adult, get your own space and stuff, you don't want to go back to your parents' house. You want your own space. You want to be able to sit and watch TV at 10 o'clock at night and not have your parents switching the TV over for their favorite show. You want your own space. You want to do your own thing, and that's the thing as an expat. You've grown into doing your own thing, which means moving to another country or retiring in another country or experiencing other parts of the world. I don't think people need to be locked into the UK, and I do find the media is picking these people that are very insular. The guys that only go to Wales on holiday and have never been outside the UK, and they've got a very opinionated view on how everyone else should live because they live their own little way. No problem with them living their own way, but they have no right to interfere in the way I do my life. I don't interfere in what they're doing. I don't want to know what they're doing. But the problem with the media is it's drumming it up. It's trying to push people against each other because it sells papers. That's all it is. It sells. It's not about whether they care or not. It's simply it makes money and nothing beyond that. And I find it sad. Like I say, this freedom of movement thing, I think long term, it's gonna do some damage in the sense that it's not going to be as free to move around Europe for everybody. There'll be more immigration issues, etc., etc. And in all honesty, I don't see why expats are being punished for something that will not really improve the UK economy. Our normal says, we left America and we don't plan to return. We hope Spain suits us because America, as much as we love it, it's awful. There is another couple coming from the US as well. I think they're coming, maybe this autumn, because they come out here earlier on. This is Wayne and his wife. I know her name begins with an I, but I don't want to get it wrong, so I'll leave it at that. Wayne and his wife come out to La Mata and they loved it, so they're moving back here and they're coming from America. And I do apologize to Wayne's wife. It's just that I've got one of those memory blanks now, where I just know I can see the letter I, and I just can't remember. I've got a few names in my head. I'm not 100% which one it is off the top of my head, so I apologize for that. But yeah, more people are moving out this way. I'm finding there's more interest out of several groups that are approaching me lately. First one is Filipinos and foreigners out of the Philippines, because what I'm finding is expats in the same sort of setup as myself are moving to Spain or looking at Europe as an alternative because, like myself, Philippines is fantastic, but at the end of the day, I want a future for my kids, and the Philippines doesn't offer it in the same way I'd be happy with. So that's why we've come to Spain. But then I've got the other groups where they're wanting to go to the UK, but I find it difficult. So they're moving to Europe first and then trying to hop on the ferry or whatever at some point and going back to the UK. Some of that I agree with and some of it I don't. I mean, the 18.6 rule, I don't really have an issue with. I know some people struggle to make the 18.6, but it's a difficult one. I think it's been set up wrong. I think 18.6 shouldn't be the right amount. It should be based on a minimum cost of living, not the minimum people live on, but the minimum cost of living, in the sense that if you're sustainable and can look after yourself and maintain a certain level in a certain area, then that's more relevant than turning around and going, oh, 18.6 right across the board. Because if you own your own house, you don't need 18,600 a year. But in the same way, if you've been unemployed for the last 20 years, then I don't think it's fair that you should be looking to get subsidized by the state. So I sit on the fence with some of it, purely because I can see it from both sides, you know, but at the same time, most of the people I'm seeing are being punished for, well, it's not even the 18.6 rule, it's because of problems within the system. There's a lot of stuff being done on purpose just to fudge the figures. And I'll say it bluntly because, quite simply, it's true. You know, you'll get people say, oh, no, that's not true. When somebody goes to the passport office to renew their passport and asks where their son's is, now bearing in mind his son's already in the UK, his wife's Filipino, it's 12 months later. It's been on process for 12 months. So he's in the Liverpool passport office asking for his renewal. And while he's there, where's my son's? It's been 12 months now. So the next thing is it arrives on his doorstep within 2 weeks. You can't tell me that's by accident. It's not the only person it's happening to. There's a whole ream of stuff getting done to fudge figures, because obviously they don't process the paperwork. Then obviously immigration figures are down. Reality is there's a huge backlog being created out of nothing. But this is the thing. I don't think the Brexit is going to go as well as people think, and I think people need to vote with their head and not with their anger. You know, because at the end of the day, a lot of the problems in the UK are internal. They really are. The lack of skills is an internal issue. The lack of jobs is internal. Getting rid of immigrants is not going to fix that problem. Separating from the EU is not going to fix that problem. In the same way, there's plenty of jobs in Europe that a lot of people could have picked up on. I mean, the funny thing is, I remember some of my friends working for Mercedes-Benz. They were working in Germany. They were employed by a recruitment agency out of the UK that sent them to Germany to just buff the cars as they come off the production line. They sit and just buff them up, you know, do the final waxing and whatever. But 12 hours a day, good pay, good living. It works both ways. And I think that's the thing. Nobody even talks about their stuff. One thing I will say about the Spain is they put it on the TV. You will see Spanish people in other countries, what they do, where they live, how they live, what they're up to. They do TV shows about it. I don't think the UK has done enough to show the benefits of the EU. There's been a lot of negative stuff, but simply not enough positive stuff. And I think that's the sad bit, because the EU could have been a lot more than it is. In the same way, I do think we were let down by MEPs. I do think that there's been enough things like panorama things where they were showing MEPs and stuff signing and then going home. They turn up, just sign up to get expenses for the week and stuff like that. Why are those people still even in a job? Why do things get voted through and it's like, oh, we don't have enough power? Well, if those are the people that are representing us, what do we expect? They're not doing their job. But it's very easy to go, it's all the EU's fault, it's not mine, which is the bit that's been ongoing since the EU started. We've been blaming the EU for everything. And I think that safety net for the MPs has just gone down the toilet. For me, I'm pro EU in the sense that I think is better as countries to have their own identity, but should be working together as a collective. I think is beneficial to everybody. I don't like people exploiting the system in the same way. I don't like people exploiting the system and it gets ignored in the media either. A lot of the let's call them fake universities and colleges in the UK. They weren't set up by the EU, were they? We know which countries were doing it, and we know which nationalities a lot of these people were. Doesn't even get a mention. In the same way, when old Boris had his visit to India, not a lot said about it. But reality is, there are certain countries that create a lot of the stigma and problems, but they tiptoe around it. They don't really talk about it. And I think that's where a lot of the anger comes from. But leaving the EU isn't going to fix it. It ain't going to make a difference on that sort of stuff. Because nobody wants to talk about the elephant in the room. Everybody wants to go, oh, well, we can blame that guy over there. It's all these Polish workers coming in here and taking our dentist jobs when we haven't got enough dentists that can actually do the job. Okay, they're coming in and taking all the jobs and everything else. I mean, I've got to admit, there's a lot of jobs there that we have had an influx of people brought in to take over. I remember I was working on Southmead Hospital, the construction on the Southmead Hospital. I was there surveying it, and there was a ridiculous amount of foreign labor for the cleaning. I mean, I think there was about 300 cleaners or something. But the whole point is, a lot of these jobs, people in the UK refuse to do. And then they sit there going, they're taking our jobs. Are they? Are they really? Are they taking the job that you don't want to go and do? Well, they'll cut my benefits only for 2 weeks. They'll cut my benefits off for 6 if I go and do that. So you wouldn't take the job anyway. And that's the reality. A lot of the jobs are like that. They wouldn't have took them anyway, because there wouldn't be a Brit wanting to do a lot of them. And that's the sad thing. I think a lot of people have been devalued for politics. But on about Spain, my kids love it here. My wife loves it here. It's my daughter's birthday last Friday, and she got presents from other kids at the school, and they just love it. I mean, the thing here is we've got the sunshine, we've got a general upbeat way of life. People are all upbeat. Generally, most people are happy. I mean, there's a lot of old people where we are, in all honesty, but they're not miserable. They'll actually sit and talk to you if you make the effort. A lot of people just don't talk. I think they're used to tourists, so you have to put it to them. You have to say to them hello, because a lot of them won't. But once they know that you'll talk to them, they'll talk to you. Our normal says happy birthday to your princess. Yeah, she's very happy. The kids will love it here. It's an amazing place. I know some people have said they've had a hard time or whatever, but I really do think some people create their issues, because my kids couldn't be happier. I mean, my son's friends are mainly Russians. I mean, that's the bizarre thing. He hangs out with the Russian kids, and they're all buddies. You know, everyone's good friend. My son speaks a little bit of Russian now. Yeah, that's it. You've got to be outgoing. You've got to be friendly. You've got to put yourself forward. And the other thing is, if you want to get more involved in things, there's always stuff to do. I mean, for me, I'm seriously thinking about starting a teaching English course here in La Mata so that people can learn English. I'll probably do that for free for the first few months, just to see how it goes. You know, because obviously I will need to find my feet with teaching it, but also I like putting a bit back because I do love living here. Yeah, our normal says, I think people who have difficulties are the ones who don't put themselves out there to meet others. I do, but it's also a lot of the time they go and shove it all on the internet. They'll go, I met somebody in the supermarket. Blah, 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 blah. You're like, well, why didn't you say it to them in the supermarket? Because you could have probably defused the whole thing by simply engaging with them, and you might have found out it was just a difference of opinion, or misunderstood, or whatever it is. But a lot of it is like, gonna put it on the internet, rather than just dealing with it. Yeah, that's a frustration. I've got to admit myself, I talk to anybody. I don't mind talking to anybody. As you can see, I'm sitting talking to the wall on the microphone. It's but the end of the day, you've got to adapt and get into an environment. You've got to put yourself. If you're in a new country or whatever, you've got to work a little bit harder than the town that you were born in, because in the town you were born in, everybody already knows you. They know your father, they know your mother, know your siblings, etc. But in a new country, you're the new person. They don't know if you're a tourist. They don't know why you're there. So you got to go and annoy people and say, "Hi, I'm such and such. Just moved from the UK or whatever," and you'll make friends quite quickly. But I highly recommend learning Spanish. Spanish people, from what I experience, don't like speaking English. They feel a bit embarrassed by it, from what I'm seeing. So I recommend that speak Spanish to them. Doesn't matter how bad it is, because as I find, when my bad Spanish comes out, they feel more comfortable because they know their English is better than my Spanish is. So everybody gets a laugh at each other, and nobody, it's not an issue. But because you've made the first step, it's better for everybody. It's a fantastic way of living. It's a fantastic country. I've started following a guy this down in Mazaron. He's expat in Mazaron. He does a lot with drone flying here as well, and I've got to meet up with him at some point, because he's a very upbeat guy. He's doing his own thing. He does a lot of stuff on YouTube, and I love the bits he's doing with the drones, video footage of like different areas and blossoms and all sorts. And I think that's the thing. For me, I love La Mata, and for me, I want to promote La Mata. It's not a holiday destination. I want to promote it as a place to live. I would like to get a nice hub of happy people here, that create a community, because the population here long term isn't great. What's our Norman says, what's his YouTube channel? It's expat in Mazaron. I'll put it in here. Mazaron. I'll just check the spelling on Mazaron. Expat in Mazaron. That's it. Yeah, it's expat in. They're separate words, and it's Mazaron, which is Mazarron. But he does a live chat as well about drones. So he interests me because I've got a drone as well. I just haven't been flying it lately. But I'm going to get it out under the bed and get the batteries charged and have a play around with it probably next week. But he's a friendly guy, and I think that's the thing. You've got to create the community. If it's not there, create it. I mean, I'm pretty good on the online stuff, but I'd like to do more locally. But for me, I think I need to start focusing on earning more money locally, because when I make it out the UK or whatever, because I do a lot of stuff with spreadsheets, I end up stuck in the house most of the day working. But what I like here is I go on the roof and I get the sunlight, just stand up there, have a cup of coffee, and you're just like, the world's all right with me. You're standing there. I look to my right. I've got the what do you call it? The natural nature park with its Salt Lake to my right, and to the left I've got the sea. And that's, for me, that's what life's about: relaxing and enjoying it. And I'm just sad that the UK is becoming so aggressive against so many things, and I don't see it improving the UK. That's the sad thing. I'm all for the UK wanting its own identity. I'm all for the UK wanting to reduce immigration, but at least sit and work out what is real and what isn't. I mean, this whole argument about the NHS and the money on the side of the bus thing, it shows how stupid things are. When people were A, took it seriously, but B, actually still arguing about it, and nobody has been fired over it. Nobody's had any issues with it. All it is just the media making turmoil out of it, rather than saying, if this is fact, one way or the other, why are we doing this? Because we can't obviously trust people to run a valid, honest campaign on this level. One of the most important things probably for this century for the United Kingdom and possibly Europe, and yet nobody even talks about it. Nobody says, hang on a minute, who actually voted for that? Because people say, well, they're stupid enough to vote for that in the first one. Well, they obviously knew these people were stupid enough to vote on that bus, which meant that you had manipulated the vote intentionally. And that's the thing. That stuff doesn't even get talked about. It gets pushed on, and this is the problem where you're getting now. The House of Lords trying to block some of this stuff. It gets pushed back, and it's like, yeah, we're going to go Article 50. Yeah. We haven't even worked out what we're going to do, but we're going to do it anyway. It's sad for me. It's really sad. It's a sad because for me to make a decision on such a thing in my own life, I would need to be well informed, and it just seems like it's just had the media run amok and people just followed it without enough facts and information to back things up, to turn around and say, you know what, are we 100% with this? Is this actually the truth? Is this the facts? Is this going to be beneficial to the UK? Because if it's not, why are we even having the discussion? Our normal really adds to the fire and should never be used as a reliable source of information. I agree. The funny thing is, I seen a news headline. I was in the Iceland supermarket yesterday because we're at the Social Security office here because I needed a document for Friday, and we stopped off in Iceland on the way back, and I seen a newspaper headline, and I was just like, "Whoa, stop yourself there!" Because I almost picked it up, and I thought it's not even a real news. The first thing I noticed is it said maybe. As soon as something says maybe, possible, likely, could be, may have, they're lying because they're not facts. It's not facts when you do that stuff. It's speculation. As our normal says, deporting people is not the answer. Same in America, it's very sad. I don't think deporting fixes the problem, and I don't think a lot of the work that people are doing would be picked up by people within the country anyway. There's a lot of stuff. I mean, America is just as bad. There's a lot of people that work for less than minimum wage. I know here in Spain, there's a lot of people that work for less than minimum wage. But at the same time, they go, oh, these people are stealing these jobs. You know what? Nobody would do them. There's a lot of industries that have disappeared in the UK because minimum wage is too high, running costs are too high. And at the end of the day, the only way to do it is actually have underpaying people, and a lot of the service industry relies on migrants. For example, temporary waitresses, waiters, gardeners, etc. Those jobs will not be taken by people locally. If anything, you'll find that jobs will disappear because at the end of the day, as soon as you start having to pay more, then you start going, I don't really need that person. I don't need a nanny for the kids. I don't need a gardener. Or you got one person doing all the job of five. That's the reality. I mean, that is the reality. Because I mean, in the Philippines, they had this. They're on about a minimum wage for the nannies, and that got kicked out because they're saying, well, that's not right. At the end of the day, these nannies get a roof over their head, fed, clothed, everything else. That doesn't come into the wages. So, but also from a realistic point of view, the first thing people are going to do is sack all their nannies. You get like 100,000 extra mouths to feed as people fired everybody. So it doesn't always work. And I don't think it actually solves the problem. And I do think there's bigger problems out there. The push for automation is becoming bigger and bigger in the world. So there is less and less jobs. And I've had the discussion with a few people who say, oh, but there's new technologies, etc., etc. If that was the case, then fine, but it's not. New technologies, as they become more advanced, they become less reliant on humans to do it. Because a bit like the factories, the car factories, when you start having welding robots and things like that, you don't need people to do any of the manual stuff except for lining things up and putting things on the machine racks and stuff. And even then, you over time you could replace them. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the world that just simply gets ignored. Just brush it under the carpet. Yeah, as Normal says, yes, they are not facts, they're scare tactics as well. Yeah, it's always going on, but there is never a focus on the stuff that we should be doing. It's always like, oh, immigration's a problem, this is a problem, well, hang on a minute, why is the unemployment gone up in this town? Immigrants. It's like, yeah, but there are no immigrants here. The factory shut down. Why did the factory shut down? Well, minimum wage is too high, and the cost of the running costs of the building are too much because business rates are too high, and some of that problem's the fact that a lot of the government pensions are too high. Do you ever hear that about government pensions? When they're on about cost savings and things like that, do you ever hear them mention about the golden handshake pensions and the ring fence pensions they all have? No, I don't either. Because that's where a lot of the money goes. It's not into the services. It's not into you're getting the roads fixed or things like that. It is the pensions, the final salary pensions and things that so many people are on. You know, you get people from the fire brigade or police retiring early and then going back as a consultant. So they get a full pension and still at working age, go back in something else. If they're not at pension age, why are they getting that pension? Yeah, in my viewpoint, okay, they can retire. It doesn't if a government pension, a state pension, is of a certain value that's sufficient for me, like it or lump it, then I think that should be the same across the board for everybody. Our Normal, it's nighttime here in Thailand. This was informative. I enjoyed speaking with you and watching your videos. Thank you so much for this informative live chat. I look forward to your future videos. Muchas gracias. You too. Take it easy. I'm going to wrap this one up anyway, because I think we've covered most of my viewpoints, certainly on the Brexit. But in all honesty, I want my kids to be here. I want my kids to grow up in Spain. I want my wife and kids to become Spanish. Myself, I'm quite happy staying here. Will I change to Spanish or be British? The answer is I'm stuck with being British. It's not something I would change purely because I want a different colored passport or anything else. At the end of the day, the main thing for me is my family, and I'll do whatever it takes to keep the family together. Simple as that. And I do think the UK has done so much damage to a lot of families in the last decade. That's been unfair. It really has been unfair on a lot of people. And I don't think it actually fixed any of the problems. I don't think they focused enough on where the real problems are. And I don't think they focused on the right countries in many cases. But anyway, thanks for watching. And I'm glad for everyone who took the time out to come and listen to me today. And thanks, Our Normal. Hopefully see you in Spain soon. Everyone have a great day. Thank you.